Welcome to today's TEFL Masterclass. My name is Anna Cuccia, and today we're going to be talking about getting ready for young learners. Okay, so if we can start first of all with a pre-webinar challenge, I'm going to ask you to try not to look at your phones or be distracted by them. Suggest that you take a pad and some paper so you can maybe note down a couple of ideas. And also try not to Google stuff. I know it's really easy when you're listening to a webinar to be multitasking, but perhaps come back to this at another time if you're busy. Otherwise, let's move swiftly on. So first of all, just like to think about a few reflective questions. How confident are you working with little people or teens? When I talk to people, it's very mixed. Some people are massively excited and confident, and other people feel really quite fearful of working with people that are no longer like them, as we're all grown-ups now. So think about your own confidence, because this plays a big part in how well you can teach young people. Think about how resourceful and agile you are in your teaching style. Teaching younger learners does require more resources perhaps than working with adults, and it's useful to think about what tools you have. I'll be sharing a few today. And think about how ready you are to deliver a brilliant course. A lot of teaching young learners is about your mindset, and it's really crucial to get in the right mindset to do it well and to enjoy doing it. So think about your context. First of all, you need to try and picture what kind of young learners do you teach or will you be teaching? And that could look really different. So you might be in a monolingual classroom, you might be with a group of children that are coming over for a summer course, it might be multilingual, it could be a long course, a short course. All of those are going to impact the kind of methodologies you use and the type of teaching and your expectations. Thinking about their age and where they're from, again, that will have another impact, although most of the tools I'm going to show you, I hope, are important for all ages. Your own experience, what can you bring to this? And if not, can you borrow other people's experience, such as mine delivering this masterclass? And thinking about your concerns. Often concerns for people are fear of the unknown. So I also hope that this masterclass will help remove a little bit of that fear and make you feel more confident when you're starting with young learners, especially if it's your first time. So I'd like to think immediately the biggest thing about teaching young people is about planning meticulously. With adults, I think if you haven't totally planned it, occasionally you can get away with opening your course book and winging it. But with young people, that really isn't the case. So thinking about if you plan really well, you're going to teach really well. It's going to make you feel a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable. So it's really worth thinking about that. Do your homework. Collect as much data as possible before the course. And again, I'll show you in a moment some techniques for doing that, something that I use. It's worth having a weekly plan so that you know where you're going with the learning. And maybe if it's a longer course, obviously you're going to have an academic year plan or a termly plan. Think about why the young learners are being taught. Are they on an exam course? Are they here for the summer to have fun? Are there particular topics or themes that will be interesting? Links to outside the classroom? Are there any particular festivals going on which are worth drawing into your teaching? Think about watching videos, and we'll put some of these for you to have a look at, some links to some really good examples of teaching so that you can feel what does good teaching really look like, and be confident about that. I think it's like anything. If you go in believing it's not going to work, it's unlikely to be as successful as it could be. If you feel confident that it could go well, the likelihood is it will go well. It's all about your mindset. So step one, gather data. Now, if you're lucky, you might be in a school that's already collected data for you. But if not, I really recommend that you find a way of doing that. Now, one way you can do it is using a Microsoft form. This is an example of what it looks like on a mobile phone and just a snippet of some of the questions that I've recently asked a group of young learners. What we really want to do is get into their mindset, understand what makes them tick. So think about finding out about their family, about their hobbies and interests, about social media. And again, we can share all of these questions so that you can see the sort of things that it's a good idea to ask. If your children are quite young and unable to fill in that form, that is something that you could get sent out in the mother tongue and maybe let a parent or an adult fill it in, get it translated, get it back. Nevertheless, you want to know, it doesn't matter whether it can be filled in English or the mother tongue, you want to know something about the people that are going to be in front of you. And to be honest, I recommend this whatever the age that you're teaching. Another thing is just using a paper form. So this is an example of a form that I gave out to teenagers, and you'll notice they filled it in for their partner, and that's the other thing I do with the mobile phone. When we've got the questionnaire, I ask them to interview each other, so that also becomes a communicative first day task. They fill it in for their partner on their partner's phone, so they swap phones. Here they swap forms, and there's a few little extra bits you can see that I've jotted down in pencil. As I teach them, I start adding things. So after working with Stephanie for a little while, I could see that she really enjoyed working with Scarlett and Imogen. So I made a note of that. So just collecting up as much information and being really interested in the people you teach is a really great starting point. Think about planning on the basis of that, who is going to sit where and your layout. So I always recommend that you write the names of your learners on cards and that you put those cards out on a table at the start of the lesson. You can give people sticky name labels, but that's not telling them where to sit. Now, by the teacher dictating where people sit, you are saying that you're in charge of the room and that it's not for them to just come in and chaotically go anywhere. If you're lucky, you might have a school that provides you with a register that also includes photographs, because you want to get to know the names of the people in your class as quickly as you possibly can. That's pretty crucial. Now, think about this. If you're teaching online, do not let basically Zoom create those breakout rooms automatically. Use the names, decide for yourself who is going where. We don't want, this is absolutely what we do not want, any automatic designation of who's doing what. Think about also providing yourself with a seating plan. So if you know what your room looks like, think about the layout. Do you want the tables to be in rows? Do you want a horseshoe? And think about you. This marble represents you. How will you get around the room once there are people in it with bags on the floor? Which are good places to stand so everyone can see you? Where will the teacher be? Don't leave any of this to chance, because this is going to show you've really thought about it and you'll be confident in the way that it's set up. People will know where to go, where they're sitting, who they're working with, and it's all thought through. Okay, next thing, think about mindfulness. Part of teaching young learners is about understanding motivation and your own motivation and drawing on that as much as you possibly can. So you might want to just reflect for a moment, what makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning? Is it your cat waking you up? Is it that you go for a swim? Is it your family? What is making you engaged with the world and with life? What inspires you and what helps you and supports you through things when you get tough? We need to tap into motivational factors to teach people really effectively in the classroom. So I'd like to share with you, perhaps some of you have come across this before. Obviously, there is an old philosophy about youth are not vessels to be filled, but fires to be lit. And I'd like you to sort of think about the box of matches and think about what happens. So I've got a match here. You can see one on the screen as well. This is energy potential, but there's absolutely nothing happening to it. I need to strike my match and put it against something to basically try and get a flame, a fire. Now, this is not going to carry on burning for very long without help. And in fact, it looks like it's already about to go out. What does it need to keep burning? Well, there's an amazing book that has been written by a guy who's sadly no longer with us. His name is Peter Benson, and he talks about sparks and finding sparks. And what he's essentially talking about is how you find motivation in life. And I think this is really crucial with young people. So his definition of what a spark is that spark could be a skill or a talent. So perhaps that young person is a brilliant musician. Maybe they're committed to the environment or a particular cause or against animal testing or something similar. Maybe that child has a quality that they're really empathetic with people. And what Peter Benson says is in order for somebody to thrive, so not just survive and muddle through life, but to thrive, you need to know what your spark is. And ideally, you have three champions or people that will support you and the opportunity to do it. So, for example, if a person is good at music, maybe they're going to have a brother or sister who's going to tell them they're wonderful at it. Maybe they'll have a role model that they can also see, thinks they have a talent, and maybe a parent as well. They're going to have the opportunity to sing, to record music, and all those things regularly together make people thrive. As adults, we often forget what our spark is. And if we're not sparkly and enthusiastic ourselves, it's really difficult to work with young people. If you can tap into this, you're showing extreme interest in the people you work with, and they will really appreciate it. And this, I believe, is together with planning, the absolute crux of being successful with young learners. So increase their motivation. Think how you can do that. So you can make things relevant and personal, and you can do that because you've collected data, you've found out. Basically, by sending out a questionnaire or using a questionnaire, you're asking them, what are your sparks? What makes you tick? What makes you happy? What are you into? And you can use this in the lesson. You're going to think about using a lot of praise and recognition, and we'll look at some practical ideas for this in a moment. Really leverage teamwork and sharing, and think about class, individual goals, but for me as well, be passionate yourself. If you're not passionate yourself, you cannot expect to get back motivation and passion from the people that are in front of you. How do you set a motivational goal? Well, with younger learners, they are often highly motivated towards certificates at the end of course. I've literally just finished teaching a group of students and they were really waiting and desperate to get their end of course certificate. You can also use little tricks of the trade, like, for example, I've got here a marble jar. What happens? You're going to tell them from the beginning, if you do a great job, you try really hard with your English, you produce a lovely worksheet, you make a nice presentation, you speak as best you can, I'm going to put a marble in that jar. We hit the marble jar, we get different levels, the whole class is going to get a reward. And what is written on the jar will depend on your learners and what you want to negotiate with them. Think about that negotiation with praise and reward, and think about deciding on a class point system. You might want to ask other people who've taught these young learners what they've done, and you want to agree what could be useful. So this is just an example of some things that I've used. There are multiple websites where you can produce very simple certificates with a student photograph if you want, or just a little picture, and give out a student of the day or a student of the week. Tell them at the beginning of the course that these are things that they can aspire to. My favourite trick, though, is raffle tickets. Now, these you can buy again online. They're like cloakroom tickets. And what you do is you have your book of tickets, and you'll notice that there are two sides to the ticket. And what happens is you're going to pull off essentially the ones on the right, and you're going to reward people. So every time somebody does a great job in the classroom, every time you catch them being good, you hand that student a ticket. So, for example, with the group I've just taught, I've given out tickets every morning to say, thank you for turning up on time. Every time they've done a good job with homework, I've given them a ticket. Every time somebody makes a really great mistake that's useful for learning, they get a ticket. So there's going to be multiple opportunities for them to receive tickets. And you will also then find that at the end of the course, your book has a lot of these stubs left in it. One side, these are so the corresponding ticket came out of here. And then you pull out all of these tickets, and you will be basically putting these, so taking them all out, breaking them up, and basically putting these tickets into a bag or some sort of thing where you can't see them. You put your hands inside, you take out 1 or 2 tickets, however many, and you say, right, the person who has ticket number 71 has won a prize. Again, prizes would depend on your workplace, who's paying for it. I invested in a small amount of sweets and chocolates. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It is unbelievable what young people and adults will do for raffle tickets. And this is a fantastic classroom management strategy. Negotiate your expectations with your learners. So, for example, you might want to draw up a class contract. Now, if they are very little people and they don't have a lot of English, you might want to do this in the mother tongue. But if they do have enough English, they can come up with it. Here's an example of something that some of my learners came up with on one particular course. So they said they were going to listen when people were speaking, they were going to be punctual. They said their phones were going to be on silent. So they agreed to this, and every person signed that contract. If they're little people, again, you could get them to put their finger in some paint, put a fingerprint on, some kind of signature. Then, when you have issues with behaviour, you have this contract on your wall, you can simply point to the contract and say, well, you said you were going to have your phone on silent. Your phone isn't on silent. This was your rule, your choice, and therefore you decide what happens. So it is really important to sort of think what can happen with that. Another thing, if your children like, or young people like football, is you can use the football cards. So again, this is something you set up from day one. So you tell them, we've agreed that we're only going to speak in our own language for the first 5 minutes of the lesson, or when we're trying to work something tricky out, but generally we're going to try to speak English. So if I hear too much of your language, I'm going to hold up a yellow card. If I hear it again, I might hold up a red card. And what you do is you draw a little football team on the board, and the students have to look at that football team and decide what is happening, which way they are going, if they want to basically lose a player or not. And often students will self-police. They will decide whether or not they want to lose a player, keep talking or not. So pace. Pace is absolutely crucial with young people. And I also believe this to be true with adults as well. Nobody deserves to sit around being bored, but you need to think of how can you do things quickly, snappily. One thing is set constant timers. So put it on the board. There's lots of electronic timers you can use. If not, you can use a simple thing like really just an egg timer, a little timer like this. Start a task and say, you've got 1 minute, you've got 2 minutes. Using things like mini whiteboards is an absolute godsend with young learners. These are so useful. Getting them to put things up quickly to show you answers is going to be a really handy technique. Thinking about what that looks like for them. So young learners, they need snappy pace, they need engagement. You need to read the room, look at their eyes, check that you're not losing anybody, see what's going on. And then think about personalizing. So we want to use their names all the time, as much as we possibly can. We want to think about nominating the learners. So asking them, Yaris, can you do number 2? Can you choose somebody to do number 3? Look to catch them being good. Think about how you get their attention. So anytime you spot great behaviour, say, thank you, thanks for sitting down, thanks for being ready, thank you for having your homework out, thank you for doing a great job cleaning the board for me. Another thing that you might like to consider is using post-it notes. So here's some examples of some post-it notes I've used recently, where I literally just write on it something that is going to be a little bit personal for my learner. So for example, I have a student that was wearing crazy socks pretty much every day. And so I wrote her a little note saying, I love the flamingos on your socks today. Sometimes it was pizzas, sometimes it was sushi. She had all different ones. And she liked me noticing that she was wearing different socks. Sometimes people were very helpful. So I had one of my learners who was really struggling with things, and their partner was really great with helping them out. that same learner looked a bit tired. So just giving a little personal note and saying, if you need a break, you can take a break. That's absolutely fine. And somebody else did a fantastic piece of writing and agreed for me to be able to share that with the class. That was really useful, and I want to say thanks to them. So having a little stack of post-it notes whilst you're teaching, you don't give everybody a note every lesson, every time. It might be just a few. Sometimes you can encourage learners to write back a message on that post-it note as well, and they might enjoy doing that. And if they can't do it in English and you speak their mother tongue, let them write in their mother tongue. Let them communicate with you how they need to communicate. Think about bringing everything back to real life examples. We have loads of amazing material out there, loads of fantastic books, but they're not always obviously personalized to the learners. So where possible, if you've got an exercise, maybe it's a gap fill and it has the names of random people, I would want to copy that out and change those names to my students' names. Now, ChatGPT is absolutely fabulous with this. You can cut and paste, copy in an exercise, put some names. It will quickly remake the same exercise, add in students' names. You can ask them to change the topic or make it relevant to learners that are in India or Dubai or wherever they might be. ChatGPT will do that for you in a millisecond. Think also, finally, about choice. Giving everybody the same thing to do all the time is not the best trick. You might also want to go back. I did a webinar a while back on differentiation, and I gave some ideas of how you can give choice in the classroom, but essentially in a very simple way. If you have young learners and they're doing homework, maybe give them a choice of task. If you're doing a particular task in the lesson, say you can either write that on your mini whiteboard, you can put it in your notebook, or you can talk to your partner. How would you like to do the task? What is going to work best for you? So giving them those little bit of extra options where they feel a bit of responsibility is powerful for young people. So also think about, how can I be creative? So different ideas for that. One simple thing in the center is just like a little bag. So you can use paper bags, you can get them very cheaply, sandwich bags, anything. You can write on it with a Sharpie, or you can print out a label. For little people, you could ask them at the beginning of the course to put some objects or some photographs in that bag and bring it in and share. And young children really enjoy doing something like that. Slightly older children, you might want to use a handout like this. There are multiple versions of this kind of thing online, all kinds of different great websites like Twinkle that have examples of this. And this backpack is something that learners can colour in. They could fill it in for their partner, or they could fill it in for themselves, and you could put that in the room on your wall. Or again, multiple different apps and tools online where you can just use some keywords. These are some keywords about me, and it's created a shape and a word cloud, a word picture. And again, that is something I can then do a speaking task with. I can get people to show each other their task, think about what they have in common or what's different. Okay, varying your delivery mode. That's crucial as well. So if you're normally doing questionnaires with your students and handing things out, can you literally use a ball? Maybe don't have people standing up because that can be chaotic with younger people, but have people sat in a circle on the floor, rolling the ball to each other. That's literally going to add more variety. Can you use something like Jenga bricks? And people pull out a brick, and that's a question. It might even have a grammar question, a vocabulary thing. It might be literally building a story using that. Or I can recommend websites such as Triptycho Plus, where you input data and it produces it in a variety of formats. This particular one on the screen is a spinner. It makes a really satisfying noise when you pull around the spinner, and then it pings up with a particular question. And again, it's just making it more engaging, more visual, more exciting for them. So let's summarize the things that I've said by giving you some tools for what happens. It's day one, you're teaching your young learners for the first time. What should you do? So in my opinion, meet and greet them, ideally at the door of the classroom. If you arrive after the young learners have arrived, you've already lost the power because they're sort of in charge of the space. So meet them outside. You've already set up all your name tags, you're holding the door open, you welcome them, you greet them, and you're saying, I'm in charge, I own this space, I'm going to be managing you in this room and helping you to do the best you can. You want to be warm and strict, but friendly and personal and assertive. I think if you try to be friends with young learners, that's the start of disaster. They need you to be the adult. They need you to be in charge. And most young people actually want somebody to be in charge to look after them, but not in a strict way. Set those expectations really clearly. Decide, are we using the mother tongue? Where are people sitting? What do we want to do with phones? What is the school policy? How much homework? Make that clear day one. Be really transparent with your system. Show them, this is my register I'm going to show if you're here, what work you've done, your test results. Again, this depends on your setting and your learners. Have a real sense of pace and purpose and believe in that yourself. Be on it with getting lots of different things done in a timely manner. Day one, definitely do something useful and applicable to their needs immediately. So maybe starting off with those phones, with the questionnaire, filling it in, finding out some information, and then depending on the nature of the course, something that is immediately useful for them. And do that deep dive into class. So make sure you've got the data, you know who the learners are and what they're doing. So in terms of day two, what does that look like? Just more of the same. Set up your routines, greet at the door, do it every single day. Let the students sit in those allocated places. Don't let them choose, be consistent. Have an easy to use settle down activity, something very simple. So as soon as they come in the room, maybe they're going to write a few sentences on a whiteboard related to the homework or 3 vocabulary items they remember, something similar. Give them responsibility. Let them record vocabulary, lexis, think about it. I have a little bag like this with cards in it, and I say, right, each day a different person is responsible for noting down any new words, anything new that comes up. I'm going to give them a raffle ticket or 2 to say thank you for doing that. Handing out boards, collecting things, give them a raffle ticket. Think about introducing topics in small steps, getting people involved. Make it obvious what to do, give them some fantastic examples, and set them up for success with loads of praise, loads of rewards. And basically every day after that, you're going to use the same routines, the same things. Finally, really, I would say, just think, what is successful, good practice with young learners? It is being motivated yourself to do it well and understanding their motivation and where they're not motivated, thinking how you can create that through rewards and praise, through personalization, by being empathetic and interested in them, giving them responsibility and being energetic. You do need a bit more energy to work effectively with young learners. And the final point, my takeaway, it would be planning is everything. It is really worth going the extra mile, doing that planning, getting as much data together as possible, thinking about how can I reward, what can I give them, where can they sit, and having all that set out. So if you do that beforehand, once you start teaching, everything hopefully will slip into place and be quite easy. And I'm sure that you'll be amazing with your young learners and really enjoy teaching them. Thanks so much for listening to me today. I hope you found it really useful.